It has been Egypt, it spread to Tunisia, now in Libya. A change in the ruling front is often sought by the common people. Let a final rule come and reign over the world. Welcome once again to News Analysis. News Analysis, a weekly magazine on current affairs. To begin with the main points in a nutshell. Qaddafi missing forces in Tripoli as rebellion spreads. In Turnabout, US says Marriage Act blocks gay rights. Obama seeks consensus over Libya. Agent Orange used to clear Canadian roads until 1980s. Saudi held on Texas terror charge. Angry World Cup cricket fans clash with police in Bengaluru. And now the news in detail. Qaddafi massing forces in Tripoli as rebellion spreads. As rebellion crept closer to the capital and defections of military officers multiplied, Colonel Mohammed al-Qaddafi called on thousands of mercenaries and irregular security forces on Wednesday to defend his bastion in Tripoli, in what residents said was a desperate and dangerous turn in week-old uprising. Distrustful of even his own generals, Colonel Qaddafi has for years quietly built up his ruthless and loyal force. It's made up of special brigades headed by his sons, segments of military loyal to his native tribe and its allies, and legions of African mercenaries he has helped to train and equip. Many are believed to have fought elsewhere in places like Sudan, but has now called them back. Witnesses said thousands of members of the irregular army were massing on roads to the capital, Tripoli, where one resident described scenes evocative and anarchic. Somalia, clusters of heavily armed men in mismatched uniforms clutching machine guns and willing to carry out orders to kill Libyans that other police and military units and even fighter pilots have refused. Some residents of Tripoli said they took the gathering army as a sign that the uprising might be entering a decisive stage, with Colonel Qaddafi fortifying his main stronghold in the capital and protesters that gearing up their first organized demonstration after days of spontaneous rioting and bloody crackdowns. In Turnabout, US says Marriage Act blocks gay rights. President Obama, in striking legal and political shift, has determined that the Defense of Marriage Act, the 1996 law that bars federal recognition of same-sex marriages, is unconstitutional and has directed the Justice Department to stop defending the law in court, the administration said Wednesday. Attorney General Eric H. Holder, Jr. announced the decision in a letter to the members of Congress. In it, he said administration was taking the extraordinary step of refusing to defend the law, despite having done so during Mr. Obama's first 2 years in the White House. The President and I have concluded that classifications based on sexual orientation should be subjected to a strict legal test intended to block unfair discrimination, Mr. Holder wrote. As a result, he said crucial provision of the Defense of Marriage Act is unconstitutional.
A law that respects the equality of marriage for all. That's what we'd like to do, and that's what we hope to do.
Obama seeks consensus over Libya. US President Barack Obama has called for the leaders of UK, France and Italy as international efforts to respond to the crisis in Libya gather pace. Mr. Obama outlined a range of possible measures, including plans for humanitarian assistance. Earlier, the White House said all options were on the table, including sanctions. It said the military would present its own proposal to Mr. Obama. Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, meanwhile, blamed the uprising on Al-Qaeda. Speaking on a state television, he repeated claims that hallucinogenic drugs had been given to young people to incite them to revolt. Fierce fighting has been reported in towns close to Tripoli as forces loyal to him try to regain control over areas seized by the opposition. A witness in Zawiya, 50 kilometers to the west, said an army unit had attacked protesters with machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades. Ships and military aircraft have been sent to evacuate thousands of foreign nationals trying to flee the turmoil.
Across the region, the United States has maintained a set of core principles which guide our approach. These principles apply to the situation in Libya. As I said last week, we strongly condemn the use of violence in Libya. The American people extend our deepest condolences.
Agent Orange used to clear Canadian roads until 1980s. Canadian officials have acknowledged the country used Agent Orange to clear roadside brush as late as the 1980s. Provincial Transportation Minister Kathleen Wayne promised an inquiry after the Toronto Star revealed use of Vietnam War-era defoliant. The chemical was used by the U.S. military to strip Vietnam's jungles. Vietnam says Agent Orange is responsible for massively high instances of genetic defects in areas that were sprayed. Based on archived documents, the Toronto Star's investigation revealed that beginning in the 1950s, forestry workers were exposed to the toxic chemical as it was dumped from the World War II-era plains onto birch and maple trees and shrubs. I don't have specific information on how much of it was used by the Ministry of Transportation, but the independent panel will look at the end and we will work closely with them, Ms. Wayne told reporters. Between 1962 and 1970, the U.S. sprayed millions of gallons of Agent Orange across Vietnam in an effort to defoliate the jungle and thus deny cover to Viet Cong guerrillas. Critics say the chemical tainted foods and water supply, leading to crippling birth defects. In addition, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs has said exposure to Agent Orange is associated with cancer and other diseases. Saudi held on Texas terror charge. U.S. authorities in Texas say a Saudi student sought to make bomb and drew up a list of targets, including former President George W. Bush's house. Khalid Ali M. Al-Dawzari was arrested on Wednesday and charged with attempted use of weapons of mass destruction. The U.S. said had sought to purchase chemicals and other kit needed to construct a bomb to wage jihad. Mr. Al-Dawzari, 20, is due to appear in federal court on Friday. If convicted, he faces up to life in prison. In a court filing, the U.S. Justice Department said investigators were alerted to Mr. Al-Dawzari on 1st February when a chemical supplier became suspicious of an order he made of toxic chemicals that can be used to make explosives. Investigators said Mr. Al-Dawzari appeared to have researched ways to conceal bombs in children's dolls and in backpacks. Mr. Al-Dawzari is accused of attempted use of a weapon of mass destruction based on the alleged purchase of chemicals and explosive making equipment and his research to potential U.S. targets. Angry World Cup cricket fans clash with police in Bengaluru. Fans queuing outside the Chinnaswamy Stadium in the Indian city of Bengaluru to buy tickets for the Cricket World Cup have clashed with police. Television pictures showed policemen hitting dozens of fans on their legs and backs. Many of the fans had been waiting since Wednesday night. Reports said they were angered by the shortage of tickets available for purchase at the venue. Bengaluru is host to Sunday's World Cup showdown between India and England. According to reports, barely 8,000 tickets are available for sale at the stadium, which can accommodate 40,000 people. The BBC's Alison Mitchell, who is in Bengaluru, says there were chaotic scenes on Thursday. Tickets for the match were on sale from early in the morning and people started queuing the night before. Correspondent says a queue snaked around the stadium, holding up traffic and on busy roads outside. Police used baton to control them, and unconfirmed reports say that some suffered serious injuries in crushes by the ticket booths. When the available tickets sold out in 2.5 hours, thousands of fans were disappointed, although the crowd dispersed quickly.
We are having a security brief tomorrow. Our commissioner will be here at 2 o'clock, along with Rahul Dravid and Sujit Somsundar, both test cricketers. They will do a small PowerPoint presentation for the do's and don'ts for the press, for the people who are going to come to the stadium. And that will be a detailed press coverage of the extra precaution that we have taken for this particular